The morning sun slanted through the dusty blinds of Divine Hope Fertility Clinic in Ikoyi, Lagos. The sterile white walls carried a faint scent of antiseptic and lavender. Amara Okoye sat nervously on the edge of the hospital bed, her palms clammy against the thin cotton gown wrapped around her. She had barely slept the night before. Her mind looped endlessly. Her mother's worsening heart condition, the rising cost of surgery, and the quiet desperation in her neighbor's eyes. The Afanis, her landlords in Umidum, had begged her to consider being their surrogate. They had loved her like a daughter and offered to pay her well. Their pain was real. 10 years of trying, nothing but silence and tears. Amara didn't say yes out of desperation, though that played a part. She said yes because helping them felt right. Her mother's cardiologist had said plainly, if we don't operate soon, she won't make it. The words haunted her like a ticking clock. So after weeks of paperwork and screenings, the clinic called her in for one final evaluation, just a routine check. The receptionist had smiled, but everything about today felt off. When the nurse called out, Amarachi Okoye, she barely registered the difference. Her full name was Amara, but people rarely got it right. She was told to go into room 5, though her text message clearly said room 6. Evaluation only, no insemination. Too exhausted to argue, Amara stepped into room 5. Another nurse glanced at her file and muttered, "Lie down, please. This will be quick." The procedure began. A bit of discomfort, cold instruments, medical jargon she didn't fully grasp. When she asked a question, the nurse smiled gently. "You've done this before in earlier cycles, haven't you?" Amara hesitated, then nodded vaguely. Maybe it was just how things were said. Maybe this was all normal. It was only after she returned home that she reread the text. Room 6. Evaluation only. Do not proceed with insemination. Her heart dropped. Panic surged through her like boiling water. Welcome to Moonlit Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe, and join the circle. Every story begins with you. Surged through her like boiling water. She tried to call. She got nothing but voicemails. She emailed. She returned to the clinic the next day. And that's when the truth slipped out from a stuttering doctor. There was a clerical error. You were mistakenly inseminated. Amara's knees buckled. And the donor was Mr. Henry Obiekwe, CEO of Obiekwe Group. The name felt like thunder in her ears. She staggered back, barely making it out before throwing up on the marble floor. She was 25, alone, broke, and now, unknowingly pregnant with a billionaire's child. Back in her one-room apartment in Ajegunle, Amara Okoye sat on the edge of her rusted iron bed, staring at the plastic stick in her hand, like it had just declared war. Positive. She blinked. She reached for the second test she'd taken just an hour earlier. Also positive. A third sat on the windowsill, glaring at her like it knew a secret she didn't. Amara's body felt hollow. She hadn't even started the surrogacy for the Afanis. She wasn't dating. She hadn't touched a man in over a year. So how was she pregnant? Then the doctor's voice echoed again in her mind. There was a transfer error. You were inseminated with Mr. Henry Obiekwe's sperm. Amara had nearly fainted right there in the clinic hallway. Henry Obiekwe. That name didn't need an introduction in Lagos. CEO of the Obiekwe Group. Billionaire. Elusive. Known for his storm gray eyes and cold demeanor. He rarely appeared in public without a suit and a frown. His face was on business magazines, TEDx billboards, and every major real estate deal in Victoria Island. And now, she was carrying his child? No, not child. Children. Because 2 days after the home test, she was called back to the clinic for confirmation. Triplets. The doctor said, not quite meeting her eyes. Amara nearly screamed. You're sure? The doctor nodded. 3 healthy embryos. We're so sorry. We understand the gravity of what happened. Do you? Amara snapped. Do you understand that I live in Ajegunle with a mother who's dying? That I work as a cleaner in a school for 30,000 Nigerian nairas a month? That this mistake could ruin my life? The hospital promised silence. They apologized profusely, but none of that made the nausea go away. or the terror that followed her like a second skin. Then came the summons. A black Prado parked outside her compound one morning. A man in a suit approached. "Miss Amara Okoye, Mr. Henry Obiekwe would like to meet with you, privately." Amara nearly laughed, like she had the power to say no. She wore her best blouse, an old white one with a missing button, and traveled across the city in silence. The car pulled into a discreet building in Ikoyi. A private conference room awaited her, and so did he. Henry Obiekwe sat perfectly still, dressed in navy blue, sharp-jawed and expressionless. When he looked up at her, his eyes locked onto hers like a hawk. "You're the girl," he said quietly, "the one they mixed up." Amara didn't answer. She couldn't. She was too busy trying not to pass out. The air in the conference room felt heavy, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Amara stood by the door, shoulders tense, lips trembling. Henry Obiekwe remained seated, his expression unreadable, save for the slight twitch of his jaw. "You're pregnant," he said calmly. She nodded. "We're 3, apparently." He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "You're certain this isn't a scam?" Amara's face flushed with heat. "Excuse me? You're poor. You live in Ajegunle. You have motive." She stepped forward. "Do I look like I'm lying?" He studied her for a long, silent beat. Then, to her surprise, he pulled out the chair opposite his. "Sit." Amara hesitated, then obeyed. They spoke for over half an hour. About the hospital's mistake, about the press, about what would happen when the world found out. But it was his final statement that shook her. "You're carrying my blood," he said. "That means I protect it." Her brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" He exhaled slowly, like someone delivering bad news with controlled precision. "I want a contract marriage," he said. "Temporary. Quiet. No emotions. I'll provide for your medical care, your mother's surgery, a private residence, and security. You carry the children safely. When it's done, we go our separate ways." Amara blinked. "You want to marry me?" "Technically, yes. Legally. Conveniently. And if I say no, I'll still support the children. But it'll be public. Messy. The press will destroy your life." Amara's throat tightened. Her mind reeled. Her mother was still on medication, barely clinging to life. Rent was due. Her job barely covered food, let alone hospital bills. She had nothing. And now, here was Lagos' most powerful man, offering her stability at the cost of her freedom. "What about my mother?" she asked quietly. Henry reached into his suit pocket and slid a card across the table. "Go to Faith Care Specialist Hospital tomorrow. Say nothing. Everything will be handled." She stared at him, eyes blurring. "I hate you," she whispered. "I'm not asking you to love me," he replied, still calm. "I'm asking you to protect our legacy." Amara stood up, her body shaking. This wasn't what she signed up for. She had come to help someone else become a mother. Now she was about to become one, to triplets, with a man who viewed fatherhood as strategy. And worse, she was starting to feel something she couldn't name. 2 days later, Amara Okoye stood at the gates of a sprawling mansion in Banana Island, her small overnight bag clenched tightly in one hand. She hadn't packed much, just the basics. Her headscarf, 2 dresses, her mother's rosary beads, and a worn photo of them smiling in front of a roadside Accra stall in Umidum. The security guards didn't ask questions. They opened the gates wordlessly and nodded. She was expected. The mansion was the kind you only saw in Nollywood dramas or Instagram reels. White marble floors, glass walls, a spiral staircase, and chandeliers that looked like they had come straight from a French palace. The silence in the house was louder than anything she'd ever known. At the top of the stairs, Henry Obiekwe waited. He wore a simple t-shirt this time, dark blue, which somehow made him look less terrifying, but no less cold. His storm gray eyes remained the same, observing, calculating, impossible to read. "Welcome," he said. Amara gave a tight nod. "I don't want to be here." He began walking down the stairs. "You're here because you signed the contract." "I didn't agree to be your prisoner," she snapped. "You're not. You'll have access to the entire house, a private suite, medical care, whatever you need. The staff will report to you if that makes you feel safer. No press, no noise. She crossed her arms. Why go this far? He stopped in front of her. Because they're mine. Amara scoffed. The babies you didn't even plan for? I wanted children, he said. Just not like this. I didn't plan for you. That night, Amara wandered the mansion like a stranger dropped into a different world. Everything was too clean, too perfect, too quiet. Her suite was bigger than the entire flat she'd shared with her mother. There was a walk-in closet, a rainfall shower, imported cream-colored bedding, and a fridge stocked with juice, milk, and fruits she couldn't even name. And yet, she couldn't sleep. She missed the squeaky fan in Mama's room, the sound of Dodo frying at dawn, the voices of neighbors arguing about NEPA bills. This mansion had walls that didn't speak, floors that didn't creak, and silence that didn't comfort. Somewhere in the house, Henry stood on a balcony overlooking the Atlantic. He spoke to no one, not even to himself. And Amara sat alone on her velvet bed, whispering to her belly, "This isn't home, but I'll endure it for you." The next morning, Amara was startled awake by a soft knock. She sat up slowly. "Yes." The door creaked open, and a young woman stepped in with a silver tray. "Good morning, madam. Chef prepared breakfast for you. Would you like to have it in your room or on the terrace?" Amara blinked. "Madam?" She looked at the tray. Fresh orange juice, spicy yam porridge, akara, warm pap in a porcelain bowl, and flaky croissants. "Terrace, I guess," she mumbled. Minutes later, Amara sat under the shade of a white umbrella, overlooking the garden. A gentle sea breeze wafted over the table, carrying the scent of salt and bougainvillea. It felt like paradise, but she was too angry, too confused, too pregnant to enjoy it. She glanced at her belly, barely showing but already changing her life. "This doesn't mean I forgive him," she whispered, rubbing her hand across the soft curve. "Or trust him, or like him. When the babies kicked." She sighed. Yeah, don't take a side." That evening, she wandered to the living room and stopped dead in her tracks. Henry Obiekwe sat at a grand piano, his back turned, his fingers moving fluidly across the keys. The notes were soft, melancholic, not what she expected from a man like him. It was like he was trying to remember how to feel. He stopped suddenly and turned. "I didn't know you were watching." Amara crossed her arms. "You don't look like the type that plays piano." He shrugged. "I don't. Not often." Silence stretched. Then she blurted, "Why me?" His brows rose. "What do you mean? I'm sure you could afford any surrogate in Nigeria. So why were you even doing this? Why children? Why now?" Henry looked away. "My board was getting nervous. Investors wanted long-term leadership, legacy, bloodline. Children make people less likely to challenge your power. So this is about control." He didn't argue. He didn't need to. Amara stood. "Some of us don't want power. Henry, some of us just want our mothers to survive." As she walked away, Henry remained seated at the piano, unmoving. That night, as she lay in bed, exhausted but restless, she heard something. A voice. His voice. Outside her door. "Hi, it's your father. I don't know how to do this, but I promise I'll protect you. And your mother, even if she never forgives me." Amara bit her lip, eyes wet. Her heart, traitorous as ever, stirred. By the time the contract lawyer arrived at the mansion 2 days later, Amara's head was already pounding. She had barely adjusted to the quietness of the house, the constant bowing from staff, or the way her every move was met with "Madam, do you need anything?" when all she wanted was to be left alone. Now she sat across from a man named Barrister Ajegunle, who looked like a Nollywood judge in a courtroom thriller. Salt and pepper beard, gold-rimmed glasses, and a leather folder thicker than her landlord's Bible. He cleared his throat with polite authority. "This document outlines the terms of the marital contract between Mr. Henry Obiekwe and Miss Amara Okoye," he began. "Valid until the birth of the children, renewable upon mutual consent. Confidentiality, housing, medical care, allowances, and public appearances are all addressed." Amara stared at the paper, her eyes skating over the legal jargon like oil on water. She hated this. Henry sat beside her, calm, detached. The same man who had promised to protect her stood there like this was just another business deal, another acquisition. Barrister Okonkwo adjusted his glasses. Clause 12 states that both parties shall avoid public scandal and maintain civility. I'm not a scandal, Amara snapped. The lawyer blinked. She's not, Henry said quietly, turning to face her. Amara folded her arms. I'm not just some girl you're cleaning up after. I didn't ask to be inseminated. I didn't beg for a ring. Henry met her gaze. You're not a mistake. Amara, you're the woman carrying my legacy. You have more power than you think. Those words hung in the air like incense, unexpected, burning, real. After she signed, she was moved into the master wing. A private nurse arrived, then a nutritionist. 2 nannies were placed on standby for later. The clothes that arrived in shopping bags were tailored, expensive, and unnecessary. It didn't feel like care. It felt like a cage, a very expensive cage. Still, sometimes she caught him watching her, not with the hunger of a man, but the curiosity of someone trying to read a language they'd never learned. There was a quiet pull between them, unspoken, undeniable. One morning, as they stood together on the balcony, Amara asked without looking at him, "Do you ever regret it?" He took a slow sip of his tea. Regret what? All of this. Henry turned to her, not for 1 second. Amara hadn't seen her mother in nearly 2 weeks, not since she'd moved into mansion in Banana Island. Though her suite was filled with luxury, velvet sofas, a rainfall shower, Egyptian sheets, it couldn't dull the ache of missing home. The smell of roasting akra, the squeak of the fan in Mama's room, the way the neighbors in Yumidim argued over soap operas through the paper-thin walls. Then, one quiet Thursday morning, as she leaned on the glass railing of the balcony, a soft voice behind her spoke. "You signed a contract, but that doesn't mean I expect you to smile." She didn't turn. Good, because I don't have a reason to. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Henry Obiekwe said, "Would it help if you visited your mom more?" Amara whipped around. "What?" "I've arranged for you to have unrestricted access to Faith Care Hospital. A driver will be on standby." Tears pricked her eyes. "Why would you do that?" He turned to face the sea. "Because I can." That weekend, Amara stepped into her mother's hospital room, heart pounding. Mama Okoye was sitting up, peeling boiled eggs with renewed energy. "Chinik," she exclaimed, her smile wide. "You look fresh. Are they feeding you fruits dipped in gold?" Amara laughed through her tears, kneeling by the bed and taking her mother's frail hands. "You look better, Mama. The doctors say the surgery went well. I feel like a girl again. Soon I'll be selling akra again. You'll see." As she fluffed her mother's pillows, Amara whispered, "I feel trapped." Mama chuckled. "You're in a palace." "I didn't ask for any of this." "No," her mother said gently, "but maybe God gave it anyway." Amara walked through the hospital corridor with her head bowed. Her small belly had begun to show. She rubbed it gently and whispered to the babies, "I hope you know none of this was supposed to happen, but I'm trying." Back at the mansion, Henry's younger sister, Kayamika, barged into his office. "She's a nobody," she snapped. "Do you hear what society is saying?" Henry didn't flinch. "Triplets. With my wife. You've never looked at a woman without pedigree. This is reckless." He stood slowly, towering over her. "I built this empire from nothing. If people want to reduce me to who I married, they were never worth my name." Kayamika blinked. "She's not your equal." "No," Henry said softly. "She's stronger." And he meant it. It was past midnight when Amara woke with a start, her nightdress clinging to her body from sweat. The babies had been restless all evening, rolling and kicking like they were in a dance battle. Her back ached, and she couldn't bear to lie still any longer. She padded barefoot toward the kitchen, hoping a few mango slices would help. But to her surprise, the lights were already on, and standing at the granite counter, in joggers and a white t-shirt, was Henry. He was eating puff-puff from a brown paper bag. "You too?" he asked, holding it out. She smiled wearily and took 2. These taste like they came from Festac, she muttered, biting in. They did, he said. I asked the chef to find the vendors you liked. You deserve something real. She stared at him for a moment. You did that for me? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. They ended up on the balcony, under a sky full of stars and a city humming below them. Amara leaned on the railing. How many kids did you want? She asked. Henry smirked. None. She chuckled. Triplets must feel like karma. Terrifies me, he admitted. But when I saw the first scan, something inside me changed. I felt like I finally mattered to someone I hadn't even met. Silence fell, but it wasn't heavy. I only came to help my neighbors, she whispered. Be a surrogate, get paid, fix Mama's heart, and disappear. Fate had other plans, Henry murmured. Do you believe in fate? He turned to her, eyes softer than she'd ever seen. I do now. A few days later, the nurse confirmed the gender. 2 girls and 1 boy. Henry didn't say much in front of the staff, but that evening, Amara found him sitting in the nursery, just staring at the cribs. He didn't even notice her enter. What are you doing here? She asked gently. He looked up. Just imagine what they'll sound like. Amara sat beside him. You're going to be a good father, she said. He raised an eyebrow. You really think so? I see how you move now. The way you listen. The way you're here, even when you don't know what to say. He didn't reply. He only reached for her hand. A light touch, careful and slow. But to Amara, it felt like something deeper was blooming. Something real. It began with voices. Amara had just returned from her latest prenatal appointment. She wasn't snooping. She had only paused near the East Wing hallway because the orchids on the marble console looked wilted. But then she heard it. A sharp voice laced with contempt. She's a mistake. A temporary vessel carrying your heirs. Lady Obiekwe, Henry's mother. Amara's chest tightened. Her fingers curled over her belly. She's from Ajegunle, Henry, the woman continued. Her mother sells Akara. This is beneath you. She pressed herself closer to the wall, throat dry. You think this is love? Lady Ezen spat. It's pity, infatuation. She makes you feel young, alive, but she will never fit into our world. There was silence. Then Henry's voice, steady and calm. You're wrong. You would throw away your legacy for this girl. Amara braced herself. Her whole body ached. She's not just a girl, he said softly. She's the mother of my children, and she's stronger than any of us. Lady Ezen scoffed. You're blinded. No, Henry replied. For the first time, I'm awake. Amara turned and fled. She didn't stop until she reached her suite. Her chest heaved with silent sobs. Rage, pain, humiliation. By the time Henry returned to the master wing, she was packing. Amara, he asked, confused. What are you doing? She didn't look at him. Leaving. No, you're not. Yes, she snapped, spinning around. Because I will not be the woman everyone whispers about. The charity case. The scandal that taints your family name. What did you hear? Enough. Her voice cracked. Enough to know I will never be accepted. Enough to know I don't belong here. He took a step forward, but she raised a shaking hand. I never asked for this, Henry. I came to that hospital to help someone else, and I ended up humiliated, pregnant, and at war in a house I never wanted. Then Henry did something unexpected. He walked to the drawer, pulled out a brown folder, and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Her eyes widened. Her mother's full medical file, surgery, medication, aftercare, all covered. You paid for this, she whispered. Yes. You never told me. I didn't want thanks. I just wanted you to have peace. She broke down in tears. If you leave, he said gently, I lose the only thing that's ever made me feel human. Henry, she whispered. Stay, he said. Not for the contract. Not even for the babies. Stay for us. The Obiekwe mansion was quiet. Unusually so, the kind of silence that carries weight. Amara stood in the nursery, watching soft golden light spill over 3 cribs. The names stitched on the tiny pillows brought tears to her eyes. Adora, Zikora, Chisholm. They were beautiful. Perfect. Hers. It had been 2 weeks since the delivery. A quiet, intense cesarean that left her trembling but safe. Henry had been there, not just in the waiting room, not just pacing in a suit like a panicked father. He had held her hand through every contraction, whispered prayers when her breath faltered, and cried, openly, when the first baby was pulled from her belly with a tiny, defiant cry. Now, as she stood watching them sleep, she barely recognized the girl she had once been, the village cleaner from Umadam, who had entered this house with nothing but desperation and a heart full of fear. A hand brushed her back. She turned. Henry stood behind her, still in his cotton nightshirt, hair tousled, eyes soft. You should rest, he murmured. I can't stop watching them, she whispered. They feel like everything I never knew I needed. He smiled. Same. They sat together on the cushioned bench by the window. Outside, the moon lit up the garden where yellow hibiscus bloomed under floodlights. Amara leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you still think I'm just a girl who wasn't meant to be a mother? She asked quietly. Henry shook his head. You are the only mother I would ever want for them, and the only woman who ever showed me what love is when I didn't deserve it. She looked up at him. You were never cruel, Henry, just guarded. And you were never just a mistake, he replied. You were the beginning of everything I needed to become. He leaned and then, slowly, gently, and kissed her. Not a kiss of lust or duty, but of something sacred. A promise. They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. In a house once filled with tension and silence, there was now laughter, soft, sleepy baby giggles, warmth, a kind of peace only truth can bring. Amara, the girl who once begged fate to leave her alone, had become the woman who rewrote her story. Not because she planned it, but because she embraced the love that found her anyway. And this time, she stayed, not for the contract, not for the children, but for herself. If you're watching this story, we would love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comment section below. Also, let us know what part of this story touched you the most. What lesson did you learn from Amara's journey? We truly enjoy hearing your thoughts and reflections. Speech Balloon. Don't forget to check out our other interesting stories on this channel. We've got more emotional, inspiring, and powerful tales waiting for you. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.